Welcome back to my channel, Tara. Today, I have a story that will make you question everything you think you know about trust, family, and betrayal. This is a story from my Clara's Life Stories series. I received the divorce papers by email while I was still in the desert. 13 years of marriage ended as a PDF attachment. My name is Nathan. I'm 42 years old, a staff sergeant with the 82nd Airborne. I had been deployed in Kandahar for 4 months when Becky decided she was done waiting. The subject line said, "Let's be adults about this." The message itself was only 3 sentences long. She had already filed for divorce. She had already emptied our joint account, and she had already moved her new boyfriend, Jeremy, into our house in Spokane. I read the email twice. Then I closed my laptop. I took a shower in the communal stall, got dressed for my shift, and went back to work like nothing had happened. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't react. I didn't break. That night, back at my bunk, I replied with a single word, "Understood." No arguments, no pleading, no threats. My bunkmate Wilson noticed something was off. He didn't look up from his book when he asked, "You good, man?" "Yeah," I said. "Just stuff back home." He nodded, and that was the end of it. Military guys know when not to push. Some things don't need to be said out loud. The truth was, I wasn't surprised. 6 months before deployment, things had already started to change, not all at once, just small signs. Becky stopped asking about my day. She began working late at the dental office where she answered phones. She had joined a gym and started going 3 times a week, but never came home tired. New clothes appeared in the closet, new friends I never met, new passwords on her phone. I didn't confront her. I didn't check her messages or follow her around. That's not who I am. But I wasn't blind either. So I started making quiet moves of my own. Nothing dramatic, just precautions. I secured important documents in a storage unit across town, my birth certificate, marriage license, and the house paperwork. The VA loan was in my name only. I also moved my grandfather's watch and my mother's silver jewelry there, things that couldn't be replaced. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank and redirected part of my pay. Not enough for her to notice, but enough so I wouldn't be starting from zero if things fell apart. The night before I deployed, Becky hugged me at the airport and said, "Stay safe, okay?" Her eyes were dry. It felt less like goodbye to a husband and more like a polite farewell to a coworker. I should have known then. What she didn't realize was that I had already prepared for this moment. And what she didn't understand was this: I don't start fights, but I do finish them. I met Becky in 2010 at a backyard barbecue hosted by a friend. I was home between deployments, crashing at my buddy Jason's place in Spokane. She was finishing nursing school back then, or at least that was the plan. Somewhere along the way, she decided to take an administrative job at a dental office instead. "Less stress," she told me. We got married 8 months later. Back then, Becky liked to say she was proud of my service. She just never really understood it. Her father was a bank manager. Her brother was a pharmacist. There was no military background in her family at all. Every once in a while, she'd ask when I planned to get a real job, not realizing that after 15 years, the Army wasn't something I was passing time in. It was my career. In 2014, we bought our house. Nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, a small yard, a quiet neighborhood. The mortgage was only in my name because the VA loan was tied to my service. Still, I added her to the deed. That's what married people do. You share. A year after we got married, my father died. Heart attack while shoveling snow. 3 years later, my mother followed. Lung cancer, even though she'd never smoked a day in her life. They left me some money, not millions, just enough to clear student loans and give us breathing room, a cushion for the future. Over the years, I deployed 4 times, Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice, and every time I came home, Becky felt a little farther away, more restless, like she was acting out a part she no longer wanted. One night, after I mentioned possibly re-enlisting for another 4 years, she finally said it out loud. "I didn't sign up to be a military wife," she said. "I'm tired of being alone all the time." I understood, I really did. But the Army was the one place where I felt useful, where people depended on me, where I mattered. By 2019, the cracks were impossible to ignore. She got annoyed when I called during her girls' nights. She talked constantly about her friend Melissa, who had divorced her husband and was living her best life. She made comments about how we didn't really have much in common anymore. I suggested counseling. She said we were fine, just going through a phase. Then came the late nights, the weekends away with friends I'd never met, the gym membership she barely used, the wardrobe overhaul. I didn't accuse her. That's never been my style. My father raised me to think first, speak second, and act only when I was sure. So instead of reacting, I watched and I prepared because my gut told me something bad was coming. And in this life, you learn to trust your instincts. 2 weeks after the divorce email, I was sitting in the mess hall when my phone buzzed. A bank notification, a withdrawal, $88,500. I set my fork down and opened the app. Our joint account balance was down to $22.37. The savings account, $47,000 we built over years, was completely gone. Murphy from my unit glanced over. "Bad news?" I locked my phone. "Nah, just account stuff." That night, I called the bank from the base phone center. Becky had been moving money for weeks. Small transfers at first, then bigger ones. The largest withdrawals started the day after I deployed. When I hung up, I stood in the hallway for a long time, watching other guys laugh, joke, call their kids, talk to their wives, normal life happening all around me while mine burned quietly in the background. That's when Wilson found me. Alvarez said, "You looked rough at dinner," he said. "What's going on?" I don't usually talk about personal things, but Wilson had pulled me out of a bad situation once in Kandahar. I trusted him. "My wife emptied our accounts," I said, "moved her boyfriend into my house, sent divorce papers while I was on patrol." Wilson didn't offer sympathy. He didn't say he was sorry. He asked one question. "So what's your plan?" "I don't know yet," I said. He nodded. "Let me know if you need anything." That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop and logged into our home security system, something Becky had clearly forgotten I still had access to. The cameras showed a strange truck in the driveway, a man I didn't recognize walking my dog, using my coffee mug, wearing my Seahawks sweatshirt. Inside the kitchen I had renovated during my last leave, Becky was laughing. Something shifted inside me then, not anger, something colder, clearer. I closed the laptop, took out my phone, and made a list. Call James, Army buddy turned lawyer. Check V, loan terms. Contact my master sergeant about emergency leave. Review refinance documents Becky had casually mentioned months ago. Secure my military pension accounts. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was focused, like I was planning a mission. At 5 a.m., before my shift, I sent an email to James. Subject line, need legal help, discreet and urgent. An hour later, his replies came, call me, secure line only. After hanging up, I finally knew exactly what needed to be done. No yelling, no threats, no confrontation, just observation. Let her actions trap her. 2 months later, I was back on U.S. soil. I didn't call Becky. I didn't text. I checked into a motel in Spokane under an alias. Then I contacted James. We met at a diner 10 miles outside town. You look like hell, he said, sliding into the booth. Feels like it, I replied. James handed me a folder. Inside were all the documents, the house deed, bank statements, VA paperwork, and something else. Found this while digging into your finances, he said. He pulled out a separate sheet. It's a refinance application with your signature, but it's not exactly yours. The middle initial is wrong, and the stroke pattern doesn't match. I already knew the answer. Becky did this? James nodded. 3 months ago, she tried to use the equity to pull out $330,000. Your signature was required because the VA loan is in your name only. She forged it and listed her boyfriend as co-applicant. Hoon, her boyfriend, had a record. 2 DUIs and a fraud charge from 2019. I took a deep breath. What are my options? James leaned back. Several. But first, decide what you want. I thought. I wanted what was legally mine, and I wanted her to understand consequences. James smiled. Here's the plan. The next day, I drove past our house. Her boyfriend's truck was gone. Becky's car was in the driveway. I parked across the street and watched. I considered confronting her, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, I went to the bank. I met the loan officer who had processed the refinance. I showed him my military ID and the real signature on my driver's license. I pointed out the forged documents. His face went pale. I'll need to report this immediately. I already filed a police report, I said. That night, a text from Becky. Who have you been talking to at the bank? I didn't reply. The next day, I went to the county clerk's office. I filed paperwork contesting the refinance due to fraud. I formally registered that no changes could be made to the property without my presence. 2 days later, Becky called. I let it go to voicemail. Nathan, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? Like adults, she repeated, the same words from her email months ago. I still didn't respond. James called that afternoon. They froze the refinance funds, he said, but some money's already gone. How much? I asked. About half, $14,600. I leaned forward. Where did it go? Thompson, the bank investigator, hesitated. I'm not supposed to share that, he said. It's your house, your name, forged signature, stolen money. Then he turned the computer screen toward me and transfers out of the refinance account. One name kept repeating, Daniel Spencer. Who's Daniel Spencer? I asked. James took over. Let me check. An hour later, he called back. Real estate agent, specializes in quick cash sales. Becky was planning to sell your house, and Jeremy has worked with him before. 3 deals in the last 2 years. I sat on a park bench trying to process it. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just a messy divorce. It was a plan, a scheme. James said carefully, "Jeremy has a pattern. Women deployed, marriages falling apart, quick sales, cash deals. This is bigger than Becky, and your case could help stop it." I rubbed my face. The reality hit me. I hadn't just been betrayed. I was in the middle of something criminal, something calculated, something bigger than me. And finally, I felt ready. I met with the FBI a few days later at their Spokane field office. Agents Patel and Donovan were waiting. They recorded my statement, took copies of all the documents James and I had gathered. "Your case helps establish a pattern," Agent Patel explained. "It shows intent and organization. This is not just an isolated incident. It's a conspiracy." I asked, "What about Becky?" "She's your ex-wife now," Agent Donovan said cautiously. "We're still determining her level of involvement." I thought back. 6 months ago, Becky had started saying we were house poor and should downsize. I hadn't seen the need. Our mortgage payments were manageable on my salary. Patel asked, "When did this behavior start?" "About 6 months ago, around the time she must have met Jeremy." Donovan added, "Did she ever mention financial pressures? Any plan to sell the house?" "No," I said. "She forged my signature while I was deployed." After finishing my statement, Patel handed me her card. "We'll be in touch. In the meantime, don't confront your wife or Jeremy. We need to build the case carefully." I nodded, understood. That evening, I drove past our neighborhood again. I parked across the street and waited. Jeremy's truck had returned from impound, but Becky's car was gone. My phone buzzed, a text from Becky. "We need to talk in person. Meet me at Riverfront Park tomorrow." I showed it to James over breakfast. "Don't go," he advised. "Nothing good will come from talking to her right now." "I just want to see what she's doing today," I said. While she thought I was meeting her, we drove to our house at 9:30 a.m. and parked across the street. At 9:45, Becky came out and drove toward Riverfront Park. James asked, "Now what?" "Now we wait," I said. 20 minutes later, a car with a real estate logo pulled up. Daniel Spencer stepped out. Jeremy came to meet him. They went inside. "Should we follow?" James asked. "No," I replied. "I installed security cameras last year, interior and exterior, cloud uploads." James's eyes widened. "You didn't mention that before." I angled my phone to show the live feed. Spencer was photographing the house. Jeremy pointed at features, discussing price. "List by the end of the week," Spencer said. "I've got a cash buyer ready," he added. Jeremy asked, "How much?" "420, Spencer replied. "Offer 470, Jeremy said. "Everybody's happy," Spencer shrugged. I began recording the feed on my phone and forwarded it to Agent Patel. Message, "Happening now." 30 minutes later, FBI vehicles surrounded the house. I watched from down the street as agents led Spencer and Jeremy out in handcuffs. Patel called. We got them discussing the fraud scheme on tape, plus conspiracy, wire fraud, and attempted sale under false pretenses. "And Becky?" I asked. "She's just arrived," distressed, Patel said. I looked down the street. Becky stood on the lawn, hands over her mouth, watching FBI agents carry boxes of documents from our home. "What happens to her?" I asked. "That depends," Patel said, "on what she knew and on what you want." I watched her for a long moment. 13 years of marriage, good years at the beginning before everything became this mess. "I just want what's right," I said. The federal case moved fast. Jeremy and Spencer both took plea deals, implicating each other and others in a 3-state operation targeting military families. Becky claimed she knew nothing about the larger scheme. She said Jeremy convinced her I was hiding money. She went along, she said, thinking she was protecting herself. Maybe true, maybe not. Either way, she agreed to a settlement. Full restitution of stolen funds. No claim to the house or my military pension. I signed confession of the forgery. I didn't press criminal charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that email from Kandahar. No fault. Clean break. On the day the last paperwork was signed, Agent Patel called. Jeremy Ryan was sentenced 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Spencer got 12. "Thanks," I said. She added, "We found evidence they did this to 11 other military families. Your case helped establish the pattern. They might get their money back because of you." I hung up and sat on the porch of my rental apartment. I thought of other families, other deployed spouses, returning home to empty houses, broken trust. Sometimes I hadn't planned on being the one to stop Jeremy and Spencer. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes things work out in ways you don't expect. A year later, I sold the house. Too many memories, too much betrayal. I bought a small outside Missoula, Montana. 2 bedrooms, 10 acres, a creek behind it, no neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the Army after 20 years. I got a German Shepherd named Scout. I did carpentry work for locals. My pension covered the rest. Simple, quiet life. Sometimes I thought about Becky, wondered where she ended up. James heard she moved back to Oregon, starting over at another dental office. I didn't hate her anymore. Honestly, I barely felt anything. She made her choices. I made mine. One evening, a letter arrived from a woman in Fort Worth. Her husband had been deployed in the Navy when Jeremy and Spencer tried the same scheme on her. "You saved our home," she wrote. "Thank you. You were fighting back when it would have been easier to walk away." I pinned it to my fridge. A reminder that sometimes, even in betrayal, something good comes out. Jeremy and Spencer were still in prison. And I was finally building something that couldn't be stolen, forged, or betrayed. Something just mine, one quiet day at a time.